Let's take a look at some information charts on Terra for Brave New Coin. And I look at this stuff fairly in depth once a month, as I do these videos once a month. And every time, for some reason, I look at this chain, I get more and more confused. So it's proof of stake, it's Cosmos, Tendermint. Got it. That's easy. They have the capability of algorithmic stablecoins. Okay, I understand that. They have several different types of synthetic dollar equivalents, such as UST. The whole Luna-Terra relationship is what I think I just can't wrap my head around, but I'll get to that in a second. The chain has done a few rounds of funding in 2018 as well as a private sale. So not really a public ICO, but several rounds of VC funding. And you can see this in the validators of the chain. I assume those are entities that were involved in the funding rounds. And Terra can also act like a bridge for chains across Solana, ETH, BSC. The more bridging stuff, the better, so long as security is maintained, which is a near impossibility. But if I'm trying to trade through multiple dexes at once, like on Enzyme, through aggregator services, and I'm having trouble sending transactions, doing things I want to do, I immediately think to myself, okay, let's do this, but not on ETH, because it's clearly not working. It's just flat out isn't working on ETH. I don't care what people tell you or what people say. Sending transactions on ETH to ETH, fine, perfect, works great. Trying to use it as a global world computer in a complex fashion is a miserable user experience. And that's coming from somebody who does it fairly often. So anything that can help me do what I want to do, love it, right? Like, will I get burned, or will people like me get burned every once in a while because this stuff is unaudited or unauditable or unsecure in some way? Yeah, I mean, that's the sad truth, is it's going to happen. Eventually, inevitably, it's going to happen. But, there's got to be a yin and yang here. I got to be able to do what I want to do if DEXs are truly the future, if on-chain stuff is truly the future. All right, so back to the Terra Luna thing. So Terra, I think part of the issue is the nomenclature. Using names twice and using words for moon just really throws me off. But there's, right, there's Earth and there's moon. It's a bit weird, but so Luna is the staking governance part of the thing, and they say the more Terra is used, the more Luna is worth. Now, Luna is what is tracked on the exchanges, as far as I can tell. I feel like I always mix this up, but the ticker is Luna, right? So I got to assume that that's what we're talking about here. And the algorithmic stable coin part of this is a supply and demand type of system. But this Luna stuff reminds me of Decred and their ticketing system a little bit. And I think that's as far as I'll go with the explaining part of it. Other than there's some governance things, and there was a pretty important proposal that just passed. I'll talk about that in a second. These are the validators. Anytime you're looking at proof of stake, as with proof of work, you got to see who are the miners, who are the consensus people involved. Are these all VCs? Are these all exchanges? Who are they? The worst case scenario is they're all anonymous. Really, because then you're not sure what's what. So ideally, if it's a public chain, you get to see who the validators are. You get to see what percentage of the network consensus they are responsible for. And ideally, they aren't beholden to some interest, and there's a modicum of decentralization here. This looks fine to me, right? Like if in my binary scale of decentralized or not, this looks okay. EOS is probably the most egregious example I just bring up over and over again, because most of those are exchanges. Most of those are in Asia. A lot of VC stuff here, but nothing completely horrible that just stands out to me. The UST supply currently in 8.2K million, which I think is 8.2 billion in stablecoin circulating. And I believe this big bump up was when they voted on a proposal to burn Luna for UST. So eventually there will be an equivalent UST burn amount, if not already the case, for the amount decided on in this proposal. So when I see burns, I think bullish, and that certainly has already happened. I don't think anybody's going to dispute that necessarily, but the question is, do people understand what's going on or know what's going on here? I think they just are programmed, monkey see burn, monkey bullish. So that's part of the reason why the UST supply skyrocketed like that. And if you look at other projects available on Terra, at least that are listed on this Terra Analytics website, People always point out this one specifically, Chai, that it's a mobile user, South Korean payments app, super popular. I don't really have the metrics or data on that. That's just what I hear about it. Then there's Mirror, which is the synthetics type protocol. And then there's Anchor, which is the yield ag, sort of urine equivalent ozone insurance. And some of these have done, they also have NFTs on here as well, most recently, but some of these have done airdrops. Some of these have continual snapshots, Anchor, Pylon, Mirror, that encourage hodlers to hodl on, I guess, for a piece of that airdrop. If we look at the TVL for Terra across the board, not a lot here listed on DeFi Llama, still early days for DeFi land, but the TVL did hit an all-time high of around 14 billion. Let's see where Avalanche, so that was higher than Avalanche at one point in time. Certainly not higher than ETH. ETH down slightly from the highs there, and higher than Solana, higher than Tron. So even with this small list of available projects, TVL-wise, Terra has certainly been a behemoth. We can look at Terra Swap, the DEX available on the chain, and December 3rd was their highest volume day ever at 578 million. You typically see tons of volume when there's a ton of volatility. And we can look at all the pairs here, the liquidity, the APR, APY for being a part of that, AMM or whatnot, or what have you. And to understand Mirror a little bit further, we can look at these M tokens, right? And this is where any company gets into a little bit of trouble, including synthetics, including Uni, including one broker, for those who remember what that was. Anytime you're trading synthetic stocks, the SEC will find you. And if you're not registered, they will go after you. And that's certainly what they did with Terraform Labs and Do Kwon. I'm going to mispronounce that. Sorry. Do Kwon, maybe? But they served him with a subpoena at a conference when he was giving a talk, or right before he was part of a panel or something. Definitely an interesting situation. But the SEC is not going to like any form of synthetic assets that look like this if you're not registered with the SEC. And probably one of the reasons why Uni delisted the SNX synthetic assets, and probably one of the reasons why synthetics will cease or continue to not have available these synthetic assets until they're registered, if that ever happens. Some older data here on TVLs, but you can kind of see where the TVL sits across multiple chains, and we can see projects coming soon for Terra. I mean, I still think it's early days. I still think for the general person, this is very hard to like get their head around, just because I struggle with it. Not that I'm the brightest bulb in the drawer, but I've been around for a little while. As long as people can do what they want to do easily and cheaply, they're going to do it, right? That's the bottom line here with DeFi anything. And as far as NFTs go, this is an updated infographic from November 29th from Terra Luna Daily, showing tons of projects and things. I think NFTs in general are waning from their popularity. So we'll see how much of this list exists in a year, just all NFTs. I don't think they're going to disappear, but I think they're going to contract significantly. And as far as like on-chain stats, I couldn't really find too much in regards to what's going on. It's certainly not on coin metrics or anything like that. But based on Flipside Crypto, never heard of them until today, based on their data that I believe they're pulling from the chain through some node, it's definitely showing month-over-month rises in transaction counts for Terra. So as far as on-chain data, I would look to this. I would look to UST minting, as well as any other stablecoin mint for general activity on the chain. It's definitely an interesting concept with algorithmic stablecoins. We can see KRT, MNT, STT, UST so far has been the most popular. Now if we get to something that I'm a little bit more comfortable talking about, technicals, this is Luna USD on the 12-hour, and it certainly hasn't been ragingly bullish since August, but it has been in a subtle but rising channel that it attempted to break out of over the past couple days. Had some like punctuated equilibrium volatility on the down move from BTC. And in general, this isn't something that I would personally actively trade unless you're just ping-ponging this range. And now that it's out of this range, I don't really think there's necessarily a trade here. We can look at trend metrics and say, yeah, it's bullish, but where do you get in, where do you get out type of deal. You can certainly measure fibs here. You can measure fibs from here to here. You can measure fibs from here to here. And you got to assume this range holds until the support breaks to the downside. And if we look at the 200, the red line here, and the cloud, it certainly meets the bullish trend criteria. I just think on the daily, it's probably too large of a time frame to actively trade. Now, it's going to give you great signals for bullish and bearish, and it's going to tell you where support sits. But as far as entries and exits, I wouldn't necessarily use this when it looks like a big hot mess on the daily cloud. Just use a channel, right? If the channel is there, that's what I'd be using for that. So this, it still sits bullish. It just doesn't scream like enter here, enter now. I did get a Kijun bounce. Sure. It's just hard to trade stuff that goes straight up and then flat when everything else is kind of sad and bearish. And the 200-day moving average is a 50% drawdown from here. So I don't really know what to do with this at this point if I was actively trading it. I just think you got to watch it on low time frames, like the 4-hour. Pop on some mathematical support resist levels, like monthly pivots, and just figure it out from there. Tons of volume between the $30 and $45 level. So ultimately, if it breaks below there, you can say, yeah, we're bearish. But it did have a volume ramp on higher highs, did have a bit of a bear div here on higher highs. So it's just kind of all over the place. And I don't really know what you do with a chart that looks like this, where it's legitimately looking like a random walk outside of that range. Now the Luna BTC chart on the 12-hour looks a little cleaner. It's still above the 50, still above the 200, still above the cloud. Cloud support is around 0011 at that Kijun level there. We can pop on pivots here. The caution here buying at any of these levels between all-time high and the Kijun is this thing can just range for like 2 months, right? Charts love to do this. They'll pop up and they'll range, and you may or may not get some sort of pattern to suggest highs or lows. Here's like a descending triangle, here cup and handle, right? But you're either bidding the Kijun or you are just waiting for a long time, for like a month or two, to see whether or not this thing is actually going to have a shot at higher highs. So it's like you missed the train, right? You missed the train. Next one ain't coming for another 30 days. So sit tight. That's what it looks like to me. It doesn't look like this is ready for just mega highs. Same thing with the Luna ETH pair. It's like the move just happened. So to expect another move to happen this week or this month, I just think it needs some time. Now it does have a history of being hyper volatile, and the possibility of some higher high is there, I guess, but it certainly wouldn't be anything that I would be trading or counting on in the near term. So the chain works. It's proof of stake. It's got some confusing Luna Terra back and forth. It does have stable coins that are algorithmic. It does have the beginning trappings of DeFi with a decent amount of TVL relative to its competitors, if that even means anything. It does have NFTs coming soon and or onboarding, if that's an important concept to you. And I think in general, the USD chart is just a buy and hold as long as it's above the 200 above the cloud, or you just avoid it up here because you kind of miss the boat against some of these other pairs. That's all I have for this one. Like, dislike, comment, share, subscribe, and happy trading.